Mm.
This
Ooh.
meeting is recorded.
Right, anything you say from now on will be held, may be held in evidence.
Ouch.
What's the weather like in Leamington Spa, Nige?
Sorry, it's what?
What's the weather like in Leamington Spa?
It's overcast. Looks like the sun's going to break through soon, and yeah, generally quiet. No wind. Yep.
Very good.
I can't work out on this little phone how to get more than one person on the screen. So
you
is
swipe
it
it
like...
to the left. Swipe it
Sorry?
to the left or right, one or the other.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah.
No, I can't see myself at all, which is fine. And I can see three others. That's really good. Thank you.
It's the best option. Good. Well, I think it's 8 o'clock. So I'm going to kick off because this, one of the promises, this is short and sharp. Thanks for supporting the cause, all the usual suspects, but I'm sure soon we'll attract some new joiners. So just to remind you that, and people are listening after the event, that the first 6 months, well, it's from February onwards of this year, I'm going to use a BBC podcast called Rethink Climate that was broadcast in January. You can have a look on the BBC Sounds app for that. And there's a particular episode about what we can do to help change the future, make the climate emergency slightly less. And so last time we looked at, there are six actions that a bit of research shows could make up to 25% of the changes needed for us to reach net zero in 2050. In other words, and they all hang on individuals and communities, you and me. So this is things that are doable, even if it takes a little bit of adjustment and thinking about our lifestyle. Now, we've got somebody joining, which is great. Hello.
Oh,
It's Paul Perkins and Leslie. We were confused by the LaSalle tag. Didn't know who that was.
Oh yeah, that's a fusion of our names.
So these three have got kids at school. I don't know how you made it at 8 o'clock, but welcome anyway. We're just kicking off. And I was just saying, number one, it's recorded so that other people can watch it afterwards. So anything you may say could be taken down and used in evidence in the future. But I'm basing this for the 6 months on a BBC podcast called Rethink Climate Change, which was broadcast in January. It's worth looking at. And there's one particular episode that listed 6 actions that communities and individuals like us can do that will achieve, believe it or not, 25% of the changes needed to get to net zero by 2050. So in other words, it's all doable and it hangs on us. The first one was Eat Green. You can check back and look at the video on that. Today is Dress Retro, something that we can do to help reduce emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. And what is Dress Retro? Well, Dress Retro is is 3 things that we can do in the way we buy our clothes that will reduce emissions. And because clothing and textiles account for as much of the gas emissions in the world as aviation and shipping combined. In other words, it's enormous. So what are the things that we can do? Well, number one is, do you really need it? Ask yourself that question when you're buying a new piece of clothing or textile. Do you need it? Do you need it? Number 2, try alternatives like second-hand purchasing from charity shops, from Vinted, Bebop, websites like that. And try thinking about sharing or swapping clothes with other people who are your similar size. Easier for some of us than others. And the third thing is, so 1 is, do you really need it? 2, try alternatives. And 3, if neither of those work, try to limit ourselves to 3 new items of clothing per year, which I think seems doable. But if everybody sort of followed that 3 new items per year, then there would be a huge impact on the emissions generated by emissions from the textile and fashion industry. So that's the input from me for this month. And the idea of this knowledge exchange concept is that we swap tips and tricks. So over to you for response to those 3 items. Anything new that's come up to your notice recently about ways that we can live more sustainably?
I will interrupt you and say that obviously, you know, and the rest of them probably don't, that I live in France and therefore have arrived here with tons of professional clothes, which I no longer require living the life I do in Villegnon. And therefore, I don't buy anything because already I'm getting rid of those through charity shops anyway. So I'm feeling quite smug listening to what you just said. And also, again, for the benefit of people who've never been around our area, if you saw the amount of clothes that are offered to you in the supermarkets, you wouldn't be interested anyway in purchasing anything at an appallingly badly made thing, which has probably been done by some poor person who has earned very little money. So therefore, I don't participate in that. So I'm still living very economically, not only obviously with food, but also with clothing, which I can't remember the last time in 16 or 17 years that I bought 3 things in a year.
Ah, well, you're a model that we should all follow, Chris.
Oh, not necessarily, no.
I just wanted to say 2 things. One, on the 3 items. This is a problem when you buy a pack of knickers because they come.
Oh, sorry, this does not apply to underwear, socks, or shoes. Okay.
That's good. And the other thing I wanted to say was, if you do end up buying things, which I do still to a certain extent, although I do try and think more carefully about it, especially with the example of my daughter and nieces and people who are very good at raiding the charity shops, is to consider where the item or how the item has been made, and so to look for sort of fairly traded or sustainable sourced materials when you do make that purchase.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed with your qualification there, Steve, because I've just found a pair of socks that I'm going to repair today. Darn them. I always darn my socks. Much
Wow.
Wow. Very good.
So they'll last another year. And,
I mean, I think the idea is that you're off the hook for shoes, socks, and underwear, but the idea still is not to buy it unless you have to. So brilliant. 10 out of 10 to Judith, 10 out of 10 to Nigel. Very good.
Bonus points for Nigel.
Absolutely.
This
Yeah.
is one of the 80 I've reclaimed from the streets, buses, trains. I look for hats that people leave behind on seats, and I take them home and run an orphanage for them. So this is one of them.
Oh, very good.
Nigel, just in case you don't know, this pair at the bottom, are Paul and Leslie, and Paul is Paul Perkins from.
Yeah, I recognise Paul. Yeah,
okay.
I spoke to Pauline yesterday, and she's in good form. Pauline Wills, that is. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. So
Yeah.
I'd love to know what you feed the hats on when you, as the orphan hats, you know.
Lots of wearing and warmth and care and love. Yeah.
Are you also into embroidery, as you obviously have the letter N on your hat? Not only do you darn, but you also embroider?
Well, it's in a way. Yesterday, I actually sewed back a National Trust plastic bag that I've had for a couple of years, small one.
Yes.
The handle come adrift, and the material is strong enough. It's plastic that would have actually taken some sewing thread, and I've sewn the handle back on, so I can use it for another year or 2.
Very good.
I mean, one of the problems of a session like this is it's the sort of a group of the already converted. But I mean, my idea is, and I'd appeal to you to help me with this, is to gradually build and draw in new people. And you know, if this doesn't feel like a waste of time to you, then next month perhaps come along and persuade somebody else to log in as well. I mean, I don't have great ambitions for this, but one of the things that the BBC documentary concluded was that we should all talk about the climate emergency and our environment much more just weave it into our everyday conversations and call people out when they are sort of behaving in a way that isn't, you know, that's very much diametrically opposed to sustaining the environment. And we can only do that when we've got trust and have a sort of baseline of conversation. So but you know, so far so good, really. Paul and Leslie, any wisdom from your neck of the woods?
I mean, I wouldn't say wisdom, Steve, but I think the two thoughts I had. Firstly, I did watch back the first one,
Yeah,
and I've come to the second one, so clearly that's a good sign, isn't it?
it's
But
fantastic.
I think yeah, for me, it's actually always energizing to have the conversation. It actually makes you feel more empowered, more like what you do makes a difference. I think that's the biggest challenge, actually, is feeling hopeless. I think on the clothes stuff, I mean, I can't claim that I've more by chance than by design. I never buy clothes, and I haven't for about 20 years. This then leads various members of my family to occasionally buy them out of sympathy. But even this polo neck I'm wearing, Steve, I've not for environmental reasons, just because I'm lazy. I was wearing it when I was 15. It now has holes in it. I have washed it a number of times since. But the question I had was about what Chris said about sort of buying sort of fair trade and ethical. Do you know, or do we know whether those kind of more kind of ethical suppliers actually have a lower carbon footprint? So I sometimes think that we sort of conflate different ethical sort of brands, don't we? And we kind of think, well, if something's you know, let's say got better labor conditions, that means they're more ethical generally. And I'm sort of interested, if I were to buy new clothes from you know, what are the cool ones that you buy?
Lucy and Yak.
A Lucy and Yak rather than a Primark. Actually, is that much better environmentally, or is it just better
Well,
socially?
I can answer that next month. Teaser alert, because my nephew has set up a ethical trading company called Yes Friends, which is really one to work. And he's discovered, or he's marketing the cheapest ethical t-shirt in the world, he believes, and I think it retails for about £9, £10 or something. But he's researched all the factories, and I believe that his ethical assessment includes an environmental impact. But I'll either get him along or I'll quote him when we meet next month. But I don't know the answer to it. And I'm in no sense a bastion of climate change. I'm just trying to start something off, if you see what I mean. But thanks for the question. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I think that I think it is often conflated. However, I think that organisations who are thinking about their labour workforce and paying them fairly and using organic cotton versus kind of bleached cotton, like all of those kind of things, will often there's a hashtag that is like kind of know who made my clothes, or who made my clothes hashtag, and that is often tied with kind of, okay, we'll also have on our website information about the kind of environmental impact of our clothes. So how much water is used, the dyes that are used to dye things as well. So there's quite a lot often, even if we conflate it, they can often divide it out on the website. So Lucy and Yak, for example, will do that. So that's good. I think the only other thing I thought of was to encourage schools as well, because schools and children grow really fast. So clearly they're going through clothes quickly. So so actually that's an area of quite a lot of potential waste and or buying new. But our school, for example, has a effectively you give back any clothes that are fairly like uniforms that are fairly nice still or usable still, and then they sell them on for the parent teacher association. So then the money goes to the school, but it's only like £1 or £2 per item, or even it's donation based actually, so you can get it for free. So it's also something in terms of getting or spreading it, because we're all effectively here like the converted as such, is to kind of encourage schools to do the same, and maybe even volunteer to do that, because I think that's the bit that's hard, is who's going to volunteer to go through a whole load of school uniforms, wash them, adapt them, whatever needed.
This is the genius of a session like this. I mean, I don't know why that hasn't been suggested in big time before. It's an obvious one that I'd never thought of. So thanks for that. Anyway, I'm going to have to guillotine that because we're promised for 15 minutes. And I actually, if I don't run quickly, I'm going to miss my ferry back to France at 11 o'clock this morning. So I've got an evening said. Chris, did you want a last final word, waving your hand?
Oh, only to say that, yes, that school system is good. It works in our village and it could be extended to other groups, for instance, other groups and things like that, which we have attempted, but not as yet very successfully.
So the summary is last month was Eat Green, which meant about eat everything you buy as far as you can, don't throw anything away, and move as close as possible to a plant-based diet. Today is Dress Retro, which is about limiting yourself to 3 items per year, trying alternatives and ask yourself, do I really need it? That's it, folks. Have a great day. I'm going to just cut it there because I've got to run. Thanks for calling in.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Bye.
Bye.